Today was supposed to be a celebration. My daughter Sophia's baby shower, announcing her second child. The house was filled with laughter, pastel decorations, and the sweet scent of vanilla cupcakes. But when my 4-year-old grandson Oliver tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "Grandma, I need to show you something in Daddy's office. It's about you," I had no idea my entire world was about to shatter. I followed Oliver down the hallway, his small hand gripping mine with unusual urgency. He kept glancing back at the party, making sure no one was watching. When we reached Marcus's home office, Oliver quietly closed the door behind us and pulled a folder from behind the desk. "Grandma, why did Daddy cross out your name?" he asked, his blue eyes wide with confusion. "And why does it say Grandma Victoria's name instead?" My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside were corporate documents for Rivera Family Consulting, the business I'd poured my life savings into 22 years ago. Documents that should have shown my name as a 50% shareholder. Instead, every page had my signature crossed out in red ink, replaced with Victoria Sterling's flowing script, my mother-in-law's name. I heard footsteps approaching and quickly returned the folder to its hiding spot. Oliver and I slipped out just as Marcus came looking for us, that charming smile plastered on his face. "There you are, Emma. People are asking for you." I smiled back, but inside, something had irrevocably broken. That brief glimpse of those documents had just answered a question I'd been asking myself for 22 years. Why, despite working 70-hour weeks as the company's CFO, did I never see a single dividend check? Why did Marcus always say the profits were reinvested while Victoria lived in luxury? The answer was simple. I had never actually owned anything at all. Let me back up. My name is Emma Chen, and I'm 47 years old. 22 years ago, I met Marcus Rivera at a nonprofit gala in Seattle. He was confident, charismatic, and came from what seemed like the perfect family. His mother, Victoria Sterling, was a former Broadway actress who carried herself with the grace of old Hollywood royalty. His late father had built Rivera Family Consulting from the ground up, turning it into a successful management firm. Marcus swept me off my feet. Within 6 months, we were engaged. He introduced me to the family business and painted a picture of our future together, building an empire side by side. When his father passed away suddenly, leaving Marcus to run the company, he came to me with tears in his eyes. "My father always said this business should be a family legacy," he said. "But I can't do this alone, Emma. I need a partner I can trust, someone brilliant with numbers, someone like you." I was 25, fresh out of business school with a degree in accounting and completely in love. When Marcus proposed that I invest my inheritance from my grandmother into the business in exchange for 50% ownership, it felt like destiny. My grandmother had always told me to invest in something meaningful. What could be more meaningful than building a future with the man I loved? I liquidated everything. $200,000, the entirety of my grandmother's legacy, went into Rivera Family Consulting. Marcus promised me equal partnership, my name on all the documents, shared decision-making. He promised we'd build something beautiful together. "We'll be unstoppable, Emma," he said, kissing my forehead. "This is just the beginning." The wedding was magical. Victoria spared no expense, hosting 200 guests at an estate overlooking Puget Sound. She toasted us with champagne, her dramatic voice carrying across the crowd, "To my son and his brilliant bride. May they build an empire together." I believed her. I believed all of it. The first year of marriage was a whirlwind. I worked around the clock, restructuring the company's finances, landing new clients, building systems that tripled our revenue. Marcus handled client relations while I managed everything behind the scenes. We were a team, but something felt off. Despite our success, there never seemed to be enough money. Marcus would come home stressed, talking about unexpected expenses and market fluctuations. When I asked to see the financial statements, he'd wave me off. "You work so hard already, sweetheart. Let me handle the big picture while you focus on operations." That's what partners do, right? We each play to our strengths. I wanted to trust him. So I did. Then Victoria started having emergencies. A burst pipe in her condo that required $20,000 in repairs. A medical procedure not covered by insurance. A friend's investment opportunity she simply couldn't pass up. Each time, Marcus would come to me with his charming, apologetic smile. "Just this once, Emma. Family takes care of family." I'd write the check. Every single time. When Sophia was born, I thought things might change. I took 6 weeks of maternity leave, and when I returned, Victoria had somehow become even more involved in the business. She'd stop by the office daily, whisking Marcus away for strategic lunches that lasted hours. When I asked to join, Victoria would pat my hand condescendingly. "Oh, sweetheart, this is just boring family business talk. You focus on those spreadsheets. That's what you're good at." The pattern continued for years. I worked, Victoria spent, Marcus mediated, always with that understanding smile, always promising that things would balance out eventually. My daughter grew up seeing her grandmother more than her mother because I was always at the office, trying to keep our family business afloat. By the time Sophia turned 10, I'd started noticing irregularities, expenses that didn't make sense, transfers I couldn't track. But whenever I tried to dig deeper, Marcus would get defensive. "Are you accusing me of something, Emma? After everything we've built together? After how hard I work to keep this family stable?" He'd make me feel guilty for even questioning. So I'd back down, tell myself I was being paranoid, and work even harder to compensate. Sophia was 12 when I first suspected something was seriously wrong. Victoria showed up to our daughter's piano recital wearing a diamond bracelet I'd never seen before. When I complimented it, she laughed. "Oh, this old thing?" Marcus surprised me, said I deserved something special for all my support of the business. $20,000. I knew because I'd seen the credit card statement. $20,000 on a bracelet while we'd just told Sophia we couldn't afford the summer music camp she wanted. That night, I confronted Marcus. He had an explanation ready, of course. He always did. "Mom's been struggling, Emma. Dad's death anniversary was last week. I wanted to do something to lift her spirits. Is that so wrong? With $20,000? Marcus, that's more than we budgeted for the entire year of Sophia's activities. And Sophia has everything she needs, doesn't she? She has a roof over her head, food on the table, a good school. My mother gave up her acting career to support my father's business. She deserves some recognition." The argument went in circles until I was too exhausted to continue. It always did. Over the years, I started noticing a pattern. Victoria would disappear for spa weekends that lasted 4 or 5 days. She'd return looking haggard, not refreshed. Marcus would be stressed and secretive for weeks afterward. Money would vanish from accounts I thought were secure. When Sophia left for college, I finally had time to investigate. I started making copies of documents, tracking expenses, following digital trails. What I discovered made me sick. Victoria didn't have a shopping problem. She had a gambling addiction. The spa weekends were trips to tribal casinos across Washington state. The investment opportunities were debt payments to people I didn't even want to know about. The family business emergencies were covers for her losses. And Marcus had been enabling her for decades, using company funds, our personal savings, and my inheritance to fuel her addiction. But I couldn't prove it. Every time I got close, documents would disappear. Digital files would become corrupted. Marcus would smile and call me paranoid. "You're working too hard, sweetheart. Maybe you should take some time off. The stress is clearly getting to you." I realized then that I'd been gaslighted for nearly 2 decades. Every time I questioned something, he'd turn it back on me. Every concern I raised was dismissed as stress or overwork or paranoia. So I got strategic. I stopped confronting him. I started documenting everything in a secure cloud account he didn't know about. I consulted a lawyer who specialized in business fraud. I built my case carefully, methodically, the way I'd built every financial system for that company. And I waited. I waited for the right moment, the piece of evidence that would make everything undeniable. That moment came at my daughter's baby shower, courtesy of my 4-year-old grandson. Standing in that hallway after Oliver showed me those documents, I felt everything click into place. The crossed-out signatures, Victoria's name replacing mine, 22 years of my life, my work, my inheritance, all stolen and hidden in plain sight. I returned to the party in a daze, watched Marcus charm the guests, his arm around his mother, both of them laughing. Victoria caught my eye and raised her champagne glass to me with a smug smile. She knew. She'd always known. Sophia found me in the kitchen, arranging cookies I'd already arranged 3 times. "Mom, are you okay? You look pale." I hugged my daughter tight, this beautiful young woman about to become a mother of 2. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just emotional about the baby." But I wasn't fine. I was furious. And finally, after 22 years, I had proof. That night, I didn't go home. I told Marcus I was staying to help Sophia clean up, and he left with Victoria, still basking in what they thought was their perfect deception. Instead, I spent the night photographing every document in that office. Corporate filings, bank statements, wire transfers, emails between Marcus and his mother discussing how to handle Emma. One email, dated 3 years into our marriage, made me physically ill. Don't worry, Mom. Emma's too focused on the work to pay attention to ownership details. As long as we keep her busy and grateful, she'll never look too closely. The shares are safe in your name. I had been a fool. A hard-working, trusting fool. But I wasn't going to be one any longer. Monday morning, I walked into our office like always, smiled at the receptionist, made coffee, settled at my desk. Marcus came in around 10, as usual, and kissed the top of my head. "How's my brilliant wife this morning?" "Busy," I said, not looking up from my screen. "The quarterly reports are due." He squeezed my shoulder and disappeared into his office. I waited until I heard his door close. Then I made a phone call. "This is Emma Chen. I need to schedule an emergency board meeting for Rivera Family Consulting. This Friday at 2 p.m. Please inform all shareholders of record." The assistant on the other end hesitated. "Mrs. Rivera, I should probably clear this with. I'm the CFO and a documented shareholder. I have the authority to call this meeting. Please send the notices." Friday couldn't come fast enough. I spent the week preparing my presentation, gathering my evidence, and consulting with my lawyer. I also did something I should have done 20 years ago. I called my father. "Dad, I need your help." He listened as I explained everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Emma, sweetheart, I tried to warn you before you married him. I told you that family seemed too good to be true." "I know, Dad. I should have listened." "What do you need?" "A witness. And maybe somewhere to stay for a while. You've always got a home with us. And I'll be there Friday." Thursday night, Marcus noticed I was packing a bag. "Going somewhere?" "Just staying at Dad's for a few days. I think Sophia needs some space before the baby comes, and I've been getting in her way." He accepted this without question. Why wouldn't he? I'd been accepting his lies for 22 years. Friday at 1:45 p.m., I walked into the conference room at Rivera Family Consulting. The board members were already gathered, 5 independent directors my father-in-law had appointed years ago, people who actually cared about the company's integrity. Marcus arrived at 1:55 with Victoria. His face went white when he saw me standing at the head of the table with a stack of documents and my laptop connected to the projector. "Emma, what is this?" "Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss." He glanced at his mother, who looked equally confused. They took their seats. I began my presentation. 22 years of fraud, documented with screenshots, bank records, forged documents, and emails. I showed them the original shareholder agreement with my signature, then the altered versions with Victoria's name. I showed them the wire transfers to casinos, the debt payments, the systematic draining of company resources. Over the past 2 decades, I concluded, approximately $2.3 million has been diverted from Rivera Family Consulting to fund Victoria Sterling's gambling addiction, with Marcus Rivera's full knowledge and participation. This money was taken from company profits, client trust accounts, and my personal investment. The room was dead silent. Marcus stood up, his charming mask finally cracking. "This is insane. You're having some kind of breakdown." "Sit down, Marcus." One of the board members, David Chen, an old friend of Marcus's father, cut him off. "Let her finish." I pulled up the final slide. "I'm formally demanding that my original shareholder agreement be honored, that all diverted funds be repaid, and that Marcus Rivera and Victoria Sterling be removed from any position of authority in this company. I'm also filing a civil lawsuit for fraud and embezzlement." Victoria finally spoke, her actress training kicking in. "This is ridiculous. I've never gambled a day in my life." "Emma, sweetheart, I think the stress has—" "Mrs. Sterling." My lawyer, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, stood up. "We have surveillance footage from 7 different casinos, credit card records, and testimony from debt collectors. We also have this." He placed a document on the table. Victoria's face went gray. "That's a court order freezing your personal accounts pending investigation of suspected financial crimes." The meeting dissolved into chaos. Marcus tried to argue, to explain, to charm his way out. Victoria wept dramatically, claiming she was being persecuted. But the board members had seen enough. By 5 p.m., Marcus had been fired as CEO. Victoria was officially banned from company premises. The board voted unanimously to honor my original shareholder agreement and launch a full forensic audit. I walked out of that building with my head high for the first time in 22 years. The next weeks were brutal. Marcus called constantly, alternating between anger and pleading. Victoria tried to contact Sophia, spinning stories about my mental breakdown and betrayal of family. But Sophia had seen Oliver's innocence when he asked about those crossed-out names. She'd watched me work myself to exhaustion for years, while Victoria spent money like water. She knew the truth when she heard it. "Mom," she said one evening as we sat in my father's garden, "why didn't you leave sooner?" I'd been asking myself that same question, because I kept hoping it would change. I kept thinking if I just worked harder, if I was just more understanding, if I gave it one more year. And I was scared. Scared of admitting I'd been wrong about Marcus. Scared of starting over. Scared that maybe I was the crazy one. "You're the strongest person I know," Sophia said, squeezing my hand. The forensic audit took 3 months. When the results came in, they were worse than I'd imagined. Marcus and Victoria had stolen over $3 million across 22 years. My original $200,000 investment, which should have grown substantially, had been completely depleted in the first 5 years of my marriage. The board offered me the CEO position. I accepted. Marcus and Victoria tried to fight the civil lawsuit, but they had no defense. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus ended up selling his condo to pay partial restitution. Victoria declared bankruptcy, lost her luxury apartment, and moved in with Marcus in a cramped studio in a Seattle suburb. The final blow came from an unexpected source. The Washington State Gambling Commission, alerted by our lawsuit, launched their own investigation into Victoria's casino activities. She'd been banned from 3 tribal casinos for suspected fraud and debt evasion. The publicity destroyed what remained of her social standing. Marcus called me one last time, 6 months after the board meeting. "Emma, please. Mom is falling apart. The stress is making her sick. Can't we work something out?" I thought about all the times he'd used those same words to manipulate me. All the times I'd given in. "Marcus, your mother needs professional help for her addiction." That's not my responsibility. It never was. After everything we had together, we never had anything together, Marcus. You had a worker, a bank account, someone to blame when money disappeared. But we never had a partnership. I hung up. He didn't call again. A year after that baby shower, my life looks nothing like it did before. I'm CEO of a thriving consulting firm. Sophia had her baby, a girl she named Grace, after my grandmother. My grandson Oliver still asks questions. But now they're about why I work so much instead of why names get crossed out. I met someone. Daniel works in our IT department, and he's been with the company for 15 years. He was always kind, always professional, and he told me later that he'd been quietly documenting some of the same irregularities I had, unsure what to do with the information. "I watched you work yourself to death for people who didn't deserve you," he said on our first date. "I'm glad you finally saw what the rest of us could see. We're taking things slow. I'm not ready to rush into anything again. But it's nice to have someone who values honesty, who sees me as an equal partner, who doesn't need me to be smaller so they can feel bigger." Victoria is in a court-mandated treatment program for gambling addiction. Marcus works in low-level sales at a company across town. According to Sophia, who occasionally hears updates through old family friends, he's struggling to care for Victoria when she comes out of treatment. She doesn't remember him half the time, the stress of the scandal having triggered early-onset dementia. I should feel vindicated. And part of me does. But mostly, I just feel free. Last week, Sophia stopped by my new condo, a beautiful place downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. "Mom, can I ask you something? Why did Oliver show you those documents? He was only 4. How did he even know they mattered?" I smiled, remembering my grandson's serious little face that day. I think Oliver just knew something was wrong. Kids are perceptive that way. They haven't learned to ignore red flags yet. "I wish I'd been that perceptive," Sophia said quietly. "I wish I'd seen what Dad was doing to you. You were a child, sweetheart. It wasn't your job to protect me. Whose job was it?" "Mine," I said. And I finally did it. That evening, I stood on my balcony watching the sunset paint the water gold and pink. My phone buzzed with an email from the board approving my proposal to create a scholarship fund in my grandmother's name for young women pursuing business degrees. 22 years. That's how long I let myself be used, manipulated, and stolen from. 22 years of working for a life that was never actually mine. But I got it back. Every share, every dollar I was owed, every piece of dignity they tried to take. And this time, no one can cross out my name. It's written in permanent ink, on every document that matters, including the deed to my own life. Sometimes I think about that moment at the baby shower when Oliver pulled me into Marcus's office. How one small act of innocent honesty unraveled decades of calculated deception. How the truth, even spoken by a 4-year-old who didn't fully understand what he was revealing, was powerful enough to change everything. I learned something important through all of this. It's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to demand what's yours, and it's never too late to start over. My grandmother used to say, "Emma, never invest in anything that doesn't invest back in you." For 22 years, I invested in the wrong people. But now I invest in myself, in my daughter and grandson, in my company and my future. And that's the best return I've ever seen.